So what we should have figured out here is that as a business, if we have an inelastic demand, our strategy is to try to raise our price. Right? Gas stations do better the higher the price of gas is. And they don't care, and they're trying to raise their price. The power company is constantly trying to raise their prices. If you're elastic, you have to have a much more complicated strategy, because lowering prices will increase your revenue, but you still have to pay your costs. Right? So you have to balance prices and costs. So if you have an elastic demand, your job isn't necessarily to have low prices, it's to convince people that prices are low. Right? So the price of a couch at your favorite furniture store is probably the same all year round. But they list the price at being 3 or 4 times what it's actually selling for. Right? If you go to some clothing stores, you go to JCPenney. I don't know if you've ever been to JCPenney. But for about 10 years, you could buy the same polo shirt every single day for $15. And every single day, it said it was a $25 shirt on sale for $15. And it was on $25 shirt on sale for $15 for 10 years. Okay? They try to convince you that prices are low. JCPenney very briefly hired a new CEO. And the CEO came from Apple. And he decided that this whole everything's on sale business made no sense, and we should have just low prices every day. So he just said, look, these things aren't on sale. They're just always $15. And their sales fell. People didn't. All of a sudden, people don't believe things are cheap anymore. They fired that CEO. They brought in a new CEO. Started having sales again. The prices didn't change, but they pretended that everything was on sale again, and their revenue went back up. Okay? Maybe too late to save the company, but their revenue went back up. Elasticity is the basis for normal markup pricing behavior. So a lot of industries, a lot of companies, they'll tell you all they do is they don't do any fancy stuff. What they do is they take their costs and then they add a markup. And markups are pretty standard in our industry. We just mark everything. And that's the way they work. Well, it turns out that economists have studied this for many years, and the typical markup that's used by a business is related to elasticity. So if the business tells us what their markup is, hey, everybody in our business marks up 30%, that would let an economist estimate what the elasticity of their good is. So again, businesses, they don't want to believe that any of this stuff matters that we do in econ. It actually does matter, because we can predict, if you tell us what their elasticity is, we can predict pretty accurately what their markup on their cost is going to be. Okay? This elasticity stuff is really important. Look at textbooks, right? Lower the elasticity, the higher the markup. The markup on textbooks is obscene. The markup on textbooks is 200 and 300%. Okay? And don't believe me, when you if you buy a brand new book for this class and then you sell it back to the bookstore, they will pay you 25% of what you paid for it new, and then they will turn around and sell it to somebody else for 75% of the new price. So they're marking it up 200%. Okay? Why? Well, what's the elasticity? There aren't any substitutes. If we tell you you have to buy this book for this class, you have to buy this book for this class. And if you buy a different book, that book may affect your grade in the class because it won't have the problems, or it won't have the same examples, it won't use the same terminology necessarily. You got to buy it. Well, if you got to buy it, it's highly inelastic. And because it's highly inelastic, the markup that the bookstore can put on it is very large. So just say to me, hey, don't have to even tell me it's textbook. Just say to me, there's this good, and the elasticity is really close to zero. What's the markup going to be? Well, it's going to be huge. The company is going to mark that up 200%, 300%, 400% because they can. You're just still going to buy it. Okay? There are other elasticities in the world. One other elasticity is income elasticity. Income elasticity is the sensitivity of quantity demanded to, strangely enough, income. So income elasticity, we use Y for income, the letter, because we use I for investment, so Y is income. Elasticity of income is percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in income. And remember normal goods and inferior goods, right? Normal goods that we buy more of when our income goes up. Inferior goods are goods we buy less of when our income goes up. So normal good, eating out in restaurants. Inferior good, boxed powdered mac and cheese. Okay? If the income elasticity is positive, it's a normal good. If the income elasticity is negative, it's an inferior good. So we don't have to guess. We can look at people's incomes and the quantities of their buying of a particular good, and we can calculate whether it's a normal good or an inferior good to them. Okay? And it might be different for different people. Let's be clear on all these things. There might be something that I buy more of as my income goes up because I just like it, where other people are buying less of it because to them it's an inferior good, to me it's a normal good. Okay? Then there's something called cross-elasticity. Cross-elasticity is the sensitivity of the quantity demanded of good X to the price of good Y. So it's the sensitivity of the quantity demanded of peanut butter to the price of jelly. It's the sensitivity of the quantity demanded of pizza to the price of beer. Okay? So it's, look at the formula there, percent change in quantity demanded of X divided by the percentage change in the price of Y. And what a cool thing does this do for us? Well, if it's a positive number, the two goods are substitutes. So if United Airlines raises their price, we would expect the quantity demanded of Southwest Airlines to go up. So one goes up, the other goes up. The division is a positive number. United and Southwest are substitutes. Okay? If this thing is negative, they're complements. So if the price of jelly goes up way high and the price and the quantity demanded of peanut butter falls, I have one number going up, one number going down. That fraction is now negative, and that tells me that peanut butter and jelly are complements. Okay? They're complements. So if this is positive, they're substitutes. If it's negative, they're complements. And again, we can go out in the real world, gather data, and figure it out. That being said, again, it's a personal thing. So you might think that two things are substitutes where somebody else thinks they're complements. And I had this girlfriend. Not that I other girlfriends, but this one particular girlfriend. To me, when I go to the movies, I either get popcorn or I get candy. But we went to the movies, the first time we went to the movies, and every other time we went to the movies, she would order the giant thing of popcorn, and she would make them leave the top 2 inches of it empty and put extra butter on it. So we have this, 3/4 full tub of popcorn. It's hot, and there's hot butter on it. Then she goes buys the Junior Mints, or she gets the Junior Mints. I buy the Junior Mints, but put the Junior Mints into the popcorn, shake the Junior Mints around in the popcorn till they melt all over the popcorn. Okay? If you've never tried it, it's not that gross. It's actually really good. It's about 1 million calories, but it's really good. To most people, popcorn and candy at the movies are substitutes. You buy one, you buy the other. To her, they're complements. If for some reason she can't get the popcorn, she's not buying the Junior Mints. If she can't get the Junior Mints, she's not buying the popcorn. They're complements. So it's personal preference, and cross-elasticity can identify for an individual or it can identify for the group whether things are complements or substitutes. Okay? And then lastly, we have what's called the elasticity of supply, which shouldn't be that confusing to you. If we have elasticity of demand, we should have elasticity of supply. And it's how sensitive is production to changes in price. How sensitive production is time sensitive. Let's talk about that. Okay, so elasticity of supply is time sensitive. It's really seriously time sensitive. Let's imagine that you're a farmer, okay? And it's October, and somebody says to you, hey, I need more wheat. Well, there's nothing I can do in October to get you more wheat. There's the wheat that's wheat, right? If I was growing corn and you're saying you shouldn't have grown corn, I can't do anything. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of products in the world where you can't do anything like right now. Okay? So if they develop a new vaccine, it takes months before they can get that out. You can't just go poof, and here's a new vaccine, and here's 10 million of them. Okay? So momentary. Short run is a period of time where some things are flexible, but not everything. Right? So if I'm a farmer again, at the beginning of my crop season, I can take my farm and I can either plant corn or I can plant wheat. So if I think wheat, I plant more wheat. Right? But I'm still constrained by how much farm I have and how much equipment I have. It still limits on how much this year I can change my wheat crop. But if you give me enough time, if you give me the long run, as we economists say, I can make my farm bigger or smaller, I can change the way I irrigate, I can change everything else on my farm and grow more wheat. So the longer amount of time I have, the more elastic my supply is. And again, that should be fairly logical. Okay? The graph of elasticity of supply is really cool. Yes, it is. Just take your supply curve. If you drew a graph of supply, draw your supply curve back through the axes, through the X and Y axis. If your elasticity of supply curve goes through the Y axis, then it's always elastic. When you do the math, it would always be elastic. If it goes through the x-axis, it would always be inelastic. And if it goes through the origin, this starting point down at the beginning of the 0 is called the origin, right? If it goes through that point, it's always unitary. It's always 1. Is that easy? Your supply curve goes through the y-axis, it's elastic. Through the x-axis, it's inelastic. Through the origin, it's unitary. It's fun. Yeah, fun. Okay, so that's enough elasticity. Let's move on.